Trump Kennedy Center's New Year's Eve concert scrapped. Why? Artist boycott. Can you imagine you make it all the way to the presidency twice and no one wants to come to your New Year's Eve party? It's just hilarious to me. Trump Kennedy Center says it plans to sue jazz musician who canceled a Christmas performance over Trump name change. What? When he's finally out of office, you can't just scrape the letters off. You'll have to acid wash the building so that there's no remnants because of sun fading and all this other stuff. This is stupid. The music was dumb. The unveiling was dumb. The and part, like they added from and, it was dumb. The whole thing was dumb. And this is what we're endorsing by not throwing the bum out. Trump Kennedy Center, led by President Donald Trump's appointee, Richard Grenell, says it is planning to file a $1 million lawsuit after the holidays against jazz musician Chuck Red. So now you want to sue someone, a jazz artist, who probably loved Dizzy Gillespie. He probably just studied music his whole life and got good at it. And now you want to sue him for $1 million because he doesn't want to participate in your circus. As I said, it's very dumb. Give me more details. Comes after the artist canceled a Christmas Eve performance after Trump's name was added to the building's signage. Spokesperson for the center confirmed to ABC News on Monday. Cancellation of the performance, an annual Christmas Eve jazz jam, scheduled on the evening of December 24th in Washington, D.C., was confirmed on the National Cultural Center's website. Came days after Trump's name was added alongside President John F. Kennedy's. The threat to file a $1 million lawsuit was expressed by Grenell, the center's president, in a letter that was addressed to Red and obtained by ABC News. Let's quote the letter. It's dumb too. Your decision to withdraw at the last moment explicitly in response to the center's recent renaming, which honors President Trump's extraordinary efforts to save this national treasure, is classic intolerance and very costly to a nonprofit arts institution. Regrettably, your action surrenders to the sad bullying tactics employed by certain elements on the left who have sought to intimidate artists into boycotting performances at our National Cultural Center. Grenell wrote to Red. Did he? Or did he just ask AI? I don't know. I have no information. It's just what popped into my mind. I don't know. Maybe he did write it, and then read it out loud. I don't know. But I want to label it dumb. You wasted your time doing this? You had them letters go up? In an email to the AP, which first reported on the cancellation on Christmas Eve, Red wrote that he decided to cancel his performance when he saw the name change on the Kennedy Center website and then hours later on the building. I said, what? I'm not going there. I added that. House Democratic Rep Joyce Beatty, who serves as an ex officio member of the center's board, sued Trump Monday, arguing that the board vote to rename the building was illegal because an act of Congress is required for such an action. And we don't think much of Congress, but at least go through the motions. Kennedy Center's New Year's Eve concert scrapped. Artists announced boycotts. Kennedy Center's annual New Year's Eve concert will now be canceled after jazz supergroup The Cookers pulled out in a move that comes as other artists protest the institution's rebranding tied to President Donald Trump. Mediaite filling in the details. The band confirmed on Monday that they had scrapped 2 sold-out New Year's Eve performances at the venue just days after a long-running Christmas Eve concert was also called off. The withdrawals are part of a widening boycott that has seen musicians dancers, theater producers distance themselves from the venue. One band member, saxophonist Billy Harper, was less restrained. Comments made during an interview posted to Facebook on Saturday. He said, quote, "I would never even consider performing in a venue bearing a name and being controlled by the kind of board that represents overt racism and deliberate destruction of African American music and culture." The New Year's Eve cancellations follow a growing list of high-profile withdrawals, according to the Washington Post. Jazz musician Chuck Red recently pulled out, as we said, of his annual Christmas Eve concert. Folk singer Christy Lee canceled a mid-January appearance. Since Trump's return to office and the reshaping of the Kennedy Center board earlier this year, planned performances of Hamilton, a concert by Grammy and Pulitzer Prize winner Rhiannon Giddens, and a show by comedian Issa Rae have also been scratched. Look, artists are artists. They're about their craft. I don't believe that artists aren't political. They've been political since the beginning of time, but this isn't even about politics. They don't agree with this tomfoolery, these shenanigans. And you're not going to make them come and dance, sing, entertain us like a minstrel show. They're not going to do it. Find someone who will. Where's Kid Rock when you need him? Jamie, what say you about what the artists are doing and the vindictive? We're going to sue you for $1 million. The GoFundMe is going to be $2 million before you go to bed tonight.
You know, Donald Trump is hilarious. First of all, how do you get a memorial when you're still alive? President Kennedy was shot in the head to death. He gets a memorial. How do you give yourself a memorial? You're still in office. We don't have a memory of you. You are actively in our lives at this second. I would love for him to be a memory. I would love to need something physical to say, oh, remember this guy, he was in office, instead of having to be confronted with him at every aspect of our lives like we are right now. I wish we got to a point where it is necessary for Donald Trump to have a memorial. And right now, it's not that moment. So I don't know how he, other than being the largest narcissist on the face of the planet, gives himself a memorial, and then had the nerve to put his name above Kennedy's. That's crazy. This is a crazy person. And I applaud them for protesting the venue. I don't know how, in my head, I'm like, this contract, yeah, I'm assuming the contract was with the Kennedy Center and not the Trump, yada, 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 memorial, whatever. I'm sure it changed the name. Maybe that changes the term of the contract. I don't do contract law, but if that would be
where
where
law school,
that would be where I would hook my thing in. But just on that, just to represent these people, I would go to law school just to be a sticky wicket. I know he builds these disastrous monuments to himself at great cost to himself as well. I mean, he's ruining his reputation, but he doesn't care about that because he's an idiot. Building a ballroom larger than the rest of the White House. Lunacy. And this Republican Party has fallen asleep at the wheel. They're like, you got a drunk uncle that you're kind of trying to distance yourself with like that, and it's not working. Their fingerprints all over this Frankenstein's monster. And now he's desecrating, that's the word for it, desecrating institutions, fundamental institutions that have been here apolitically for decades. But
when you said desecrating, I just was thinking to myself, Trump said it, I say, spell it. It was a definition. You're right. You're just so right about this. And you're right about Congress too. The only time they come together is to make sure that measures to restrict them from basically insider trading don't survive. And then they're all in. I've never seen them more present than when it affects their bottom line. Wow.